With the watermaker still out of commission, we need to find other things to do around the boat in order to get it ready for our big cruise. So one of the things that I did over the weekend is I varnished the pulpit. Now the varnish on the railings is in fine shape, but the pulpit that doesn't really have a cover, doesn't have a cover at all actually, needed to be redone. The first thing I had to do was remove the backup anchors from the pulpit. The backup anchor on the left, that's a heavy anchor, probably about 60 pounds. Then I had to clean the teak because, well, there'd been a couple of months worth of dirt and dust and grime. It's not the cleanest place around here, so there's lots of dust that settles on the pulpit, and I was afraid that once I started sanding, the dust would start embedding itself in the varnish. After cleaning the wood and getting all the dirt and dust off of it, I masked the paint and around the stainless steel that I didn't want to get damaged by sanding it or accidentally putting varnish on it. As I was putting on the masking tape, I was also discussing the fact that when it gets hot, you don't want to leave that masking tape on very long because it will actually adhere to the fiberglass, and it's really difficult to get it off. For us here in Ensenada during this time of the year, it doesn't get hot enough, but at the same time, the sun could get it warm enough to adhere to the side. So I'm not going to leave it on very long. I got the sandpaper out and I started sanding. I sanded with my fingers and then I moved to a block, tried to get it scratched up and smoothed. Unfortunately, there were some areas of the old varnish that had been weathered a little bit worse than other parts. I had to spend a little bit of time on these other parts because, well, while there wasn't completely bare wood there, it had definitely worn to a point where it needed additional attention. Once everything was sanded nice and smooth, I got a tack rag and I tacked all of the dust off of the wood so that the varnish would lay down nice and smooth, and I wouldn't get anything between the wood and the varnish. Make for a nice finish. My intention was for the first layer of varnish to be very thin, hoping that the thin varnish would soak down into some of the open crevices. So I thinned out my varnish with a bit of Interlux 333 thinner, and boy does that stuff stink. But it thins the varnish out and creates no change in the tone of the varnish. Once I got the varnish the right consistency, I began to apply it to the wood. You notice I'm only using a little bit, so I just used red Solo cup to mix it and get it to the right consistency. The Solo cup's kind of easy to handle, and I don't have to worry about moving around because the pulpit is not all that wide, and my body is. So the Solo cup made it easy for me to move around the pulpit and lay down the varnish nice and easy. Once the first layer of varnish was on, I let the varnish dry overnight. It cured, and the next day it was nice and hard. And it actually looked really nice. I was really pleased, thought maybe might want to just leave it that way. But I know from experience that if I left one coat of varnish, the sun would beat down on it very quickly, and there would be no varnish on it in not a very long period of time. So I scratched it up with a little bit of sandpaper. I got what are called alligators out. Alligators are parts of the varnish that didn't cure right because it was just too thick. But I was able to get those out, used a little bit of varnish and paint thinner to smooth those out. And then I put my second and third coats of varnish on. And the next day I took a look, and again it had cured, dried, and looked very nice. So one more coat. I did a quick sand, just scratching it up, and put my last coat of varnish on, and it looked beautiful. finally it was time to put the anchors back on. Now, like I said, that one anchor, it's about 60 pounds. That's heavy, and it's even heavier when you're trying not to scratch up 3 days, 4 days worth of varnish work on your wood. So there was lots of groaning and huffing and puffing and complaining, but I did get the anchor on, and got it all tied up. Lots of line there because, well, it's a heavy anchor, and heavy anchors move around in rough storms. Maybe I'll put a better line up there later, but pretty happy with it. All right, here we go. That is the finished product with actually both anchors back on. Well, all 3 anchors are on now, and I'm pretty happy with the way things turned out. So just another project out of the way. Although I think I'll retie that a little bit better. But that's a heavy anchor. That's probably a 60-pound anchor right there. So needs a lot of line to keep it in place if we get into really rough water. But there you go. Been raining, and it looks pretty nice here.